Well, hello, hello. And I am recording this on February the 16th as Venus has gone into Aquarius. And oh my heavens, this energy is just off the charts. Particularly for these next 2 days, February the 16th to February the 18th, when the sun leaves Aquarius and moves into Pisces. Uh, at, uh, at the moment, we have so much Aquarius and it's kind of blowing minds. But before I dive into what I'm going to talk about, which is actually the Virgo full moon, and what's leading up to it, I would like to ask you to subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, maybe leave me a comment. Those who comment know that I usually answer and respond. I've also got a link to my Substack down in the description. I blog daily on my Substack. Sorry, excuse me, I'm just picking something up. Cat knocked off. I blog daily on my Substack, as well as these videos that kind of do the big events. I blog daily for the daily energies, and I give a lot of kind of teaching information as part of it. Uh, so if you want to subscribe to my Substack too, it's free. The daily posts are free. There is an optional paid subscription of $7 a month or $70 a year, but it's entirely optional. And those that subscribe get the blogging of my book. Oh, I'm dropping cards everywhere. I need a new chair too. Look at the state of that. Okay. Three cards fell out. This is such big times, and strange things are happening, like these things jumping out. So I am just going to turn these cards over and go, okay. Hmm. I actually kind of like this for the Virgo full moon. So before we start, let me tell you that this is a Virgo full moon on February the 24th. Of course, we'll be looking at the chart, but the full moon is always a moon sun opposition. And in Celtic mythology, I've decided to start looking at that more because that's my heritage. This is generally known as the ice moon, but it's also known as the snow moon in many other places, and those kind of snowy, cold, wintry names, because in the northern hemisphere, February is usually the coldest month, but boy, we are having such a mild winter. So the cards, let's pull the cards quickly for this full moon. The Pisces Virgo axis is one of my favorites, and I have quite a lot to say about that. But while I just find the page for for this first card, I do want to say I just recorded a video with Dawn Hild, who's one of my members of my nest, but she's also an astrologer and tarot reader. And we were looking at two particular degrees in Aquarius, which are not only hot this month, but they are hot from the past and into 2028. So I'm going to link to that on this video, or you can find it in my videos in my list. I would give that a watch. The 0 degree Aquarius and 6 degree Aquarius are really activated degrees. So you might want to know what's coming and what's changing. Because I can tell you all this, the main things we're looking at are ending in 2008. And after 2008, the whole world, 2008, 2028 is going to be really, really different than it is now. We are taking a quantum leap. And this full moon, I think, is part of it. So let me go into the cards right away. So I first pulled three. I can't believe three fell out, but this is the Page of Cups. Okay, so the Page of Cups. Cups is generally watery energy. This is in the tarot, and of course, the sun is in Pisces for this energy. So we have a water card, first of all. So this one is really about letting your emotions guide you and your inner voice and your intuition to express your emotions through some creativity, some dancing, some writing, some music, whatever speaks to your soul. And by being yourself, you may attract new job opportunities or romantic connections. And so page is kind of the youth number. So the affirmation is, I let my emotion guide me to the things that make me the happiest, and I'm aware life is supposed to be fun. This really fits the actual full moon of the astrology. So, but then I pulled an Earth card, and Virgo, of course, is Earth, and we'll talk about what Virgo means in a minute. But I pulled this reversed. So we got the Three of Pentacles reversed. So this is saying there may be some challenges in the work environment and some misunderstandings, or that your efforts are not being valued enough, or you might be your own worst critic and say, I'm not being as productive as I want to be. So the message really is to try and focus on your contributions, okay, and to not lose motivation and continue mastering your skills. Virgo is very much about skills. And the affirmation for this reversed is, I develop empathy towards others, keeping in mind that everyone has a different story. Now, a reminder that this is from the Tree Devia tarot deck. There is a discount link coupon in the description if you like the look of the deck and want to consider buying it. A few people have actually bought it already, so they're quite beautiful and they kind of feel very appropriate for where we're at right now. So then we finish this full moon with what makes really sense for me is Two of Cups, because two is generally about partnership, connection, strong mutual feelings of appreciation, and it's really kind of a coming together. But twos can also be decisions and also about balancing the inner connection. So I'll talk more about that. I am welcoming new connections into my life. Those who I seek, seek for me, it says. I've noticed that starting to happen for me actually as I record this on the day of the first quarter moon. So we're building towards this full moon. My connections have been shifting and letting go of some people, or them letting go of me, and deepening the connection with others. So as I said, this is a 5-degree Virgo full moon. So let's look at the number 5 before we dive into the astrology. So 5 really is the prevailing number in nature and art. It's the pentagram, it's the Venus 5-pointed star. 5 also symbolizes fire and the stigmata. 5 is multi-talented and many interests. It's kind of that polymath kind of energy. And it's independent, free thinking, and fast moving. And 5 really is about personal freedom, unconventionality, and change. And of course, we see that coming in as well with all the Aquarian energy, but this is about the numerology. So the 5 relates to making positive life choices and decisions, the 2, and learning life lessons through experience. Okay, so some keywords for a 5 are courageous, passionate, responsive, adventuring, and we're in a mutable sign here as well, the full moon, Virgo and Pisces, so there's a lot of change, so there's a lot of exploration. The negative traits of a 5 can be a certain sense of rashness and irresponsibility, but I'm going to say I don't see much of that in this full moon. So let's look at the positive change, kind of seeking on building some good connections. And anyway, let's dive into the astrology. And again, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and to my Substack if you like to read daily posts as well. The good thing about some Substack is you can get the posts in your email inbox. You can also just see them on the Substack app on your mobile device or on your desktop. And so, you know, you don't have to fill up your inbox if you don't want. I kind of like the emails because then I know they're there. I remember to look at them. But anyway, 5-degree Virgo, opposite 5-degree Sun in Pisces, with Mercury, the ruler of Virgo, the modern ruler of Virgo, or the traditional rather, sorry, next to the Sun, about to be Cazimi. Saturn is also conjunct the Sun, so we'll look at all of that. The Moon is also in an exact trine to Ceres in earthy Capricorn, and Ceres is thought by some astrologers to be the ruler, but if you know me well, then you know I question the whole concept of ruler. Anyway, I think we have you know, planets that are more at home in some signs and operate better. I don't think they control the sign. I don't, yeah, me and language, very mercurial, but anyway. But Ceres is in Capricorn, making a beautiful wedge shape to this full moon. So we'll look at all those aspects, excuse me. And then there's an almost exact T-square to Pallas Athena, the wise owl, the warrior maiden, leaping straight from Jupiter's head in visionary Sagittarius. So I'm just going to look at those bits and then we're going to look at the symbols. But before we dive into those bits, I do want to say between now, the 16th and the 24th, at 7:30 a.m. Eastern time, when we have this icy or snow moon, we have on the 19th, Chiron and the North Node will be exactly conjunct. We will also have had the Mars-Venus conjunction at 6 Aquarius. That's in that video I did with my client and friend Dawn Hild. And we've you know, this is a big new cycle of Venus and Mars. There's a lot of healing coming up with all of these. And that brings me to this favorite full moon of mine. I always loved the Virgo Pisces axis, but then I know I also, excuse me, say that about about every aspect probably, because I do love all the signs and all the placements. Oh, one other thing I do want to mention is that by the time of the full moon, the Sun moves out of Aquarius on the 18th and Mercury follows right after pretty much. And that's why they're meeting in the sign of Pisces. In fact, when do Mercury and the Sun meet for their superior conjunction? Bear with me, I should have looked this one up. Okay, so they're actually meeting after the full moon on February the 28th. So let me talk about this full moon. Let's talk about Virgo first of all. You know, Virgo is one of those signs that really gets this kind of energy of being very humble, very critical. You know, we get all these keywords for Virgo of being a warrior, being overly critical, over demanding, undemonstrative, fussy and self-righteous. And yes, shadow Virgo energy can have those qualities. But if we look at, you know, the more uh, um, positive, let's say, qualities of Virgo. Virgo is very dedicated and Virgo is very efficient. It's kind of likes the details. But Virgo is also very sensuous and responsible and likes right work. It's also, as I mentioned before, very much to do with kind of skills, hand skills, Virgo, doing right work as well. So it's associated with crafts and practical kind of matters. And so I find Virgo a very, yes, humble sign, but it's a very, I always think of Virgo as being a very chop wood, carry water kind of sign. And this will make sense when we come back to the symbols as well, because I think at this cold time of year in the northern hemisphere, sorry, southern hemisphere, but you've still got a Virgo moon. It's more kind of about completing some practical tasks, getting the details done. For many of us here in the US, at least, it's completing our taxes. I've actually got our tax appointment on the full moon day. I didn't plan that, but there we go. So that's all those kind of details, the filing, the details, the P&L, the cleaning up as well. Virgo has this kind of cleaning up and tidying up kind of energy. Now, Virgos are not actually generally neat freaks, by the way. I have known very few Virgo neat freaks in the house, but it's organized kind of chaos, because we do have to remember that Virgo is a mutable sign, so it does like change, and it can be quite, multitasker, doing several things. So it's kind of organized mess, that pile is everything, and that one, they know where everything is. So that's the energy of Virgo. And then opposing it, we have the sun in Pisces. And on this full moon, as I mentioned, Mercury is about to come up and conjunct the sun 4 days after the full moon for the superior cazimi. So Mercury is behind the sun at this point. Saturn is just 4 degrees away from the Pisces sun, so Saturn is also invisible. So what this speaks to me of is really kind of tuning into your inner knowing. Now, this brings me to the 2 card, and also some things I have been studying and thinking about as we move into this new quantum leap age. And I think the information coming through from this full moon is going to be very kind of quantum in nature. Now, if you don't know, and I am not kind of an expert, I'm still learning, still studying. In quantum mechanics, an item, a thing, can be both particle and wave. And that's called wave-particle duality. And if you think about it, particle is kind of a solid thing, and wave is not. It's kind of a wave of energy. And that led me to a book called The Book of Two Ways by Jodi Picoult. I've never read one of her books before, but a friend recommended it. And do you know that in Egyptian times, there was actually a book of two ways? And this is very much about seeing two ways. This is very quantum, all right? So in quantum physics, I do know that an object can be in two places at once. Wave-particle duality is an example of superposition, it's said. So, it's kind of like that Schrodinger's cat thought experiment, all right? And this may lead us to the multiverse. Now, there's lots of other things, pieces coming into this, but, it's really humans. We are both wave and particle. Now, why do I say this? Because this book of two ways in Egypt was found on many coffins in the tombs in Egypt, and in the book of two ways, there was shown that there was two ways to the underworld after death. Okay, and they are land and they are water routes. And in the Book of Two Ways by Jodi Picoult, the chapters are earth and water. And this is very much about this coming into this feminine energy that we do of this full moon. And so this is very quantum in a way, and I'll tell you why. Because Mercury is the ruler of this full moon and is behind the sun. Saturn is behind the sun as well. And Saturn is the ruler of Aquarius and Capricorn if we use traditional rulerships. This is really about stepping into that watery wave, intuitive, feeling energy, and then bringing it back down to earth, to the particles, Virgo, in a very practical and useful and meaningful way. This is how I'm starting to see astrology more and more. I'd love your thoughts on it. But there's another person who's well worth a read or listen if you are into it. And his name is Amit Goswami. That's his name. He is a quantum theorist, or he's a physicist, but he's also a theorist. And he talks. His books are mostly free on Audible. He talks about how we are both particle and wave. Everything is both particle and wave, and in some ways, it's kind of like everything collapses into us from our perspective. It's very freaky. But why do I think this is important now? Well, I think the Aquarian energy that we're moving into more and more, and this new paradigm that we're taking a quantum leap into over the next 3-4 years. It's unbelievable. There's so much to talk about. Is about, I think, quantum physics from the physics point of view is going to take a huge leap forward. But many of these lunations and the other energies that are coming are about us tuning into this duality. Okay, what did they call it again? Oh, I've forgotten the words already because I'm so, kind of like, this is quantum and I can't explain it. But anyway, it's about being particle and wave. And what did they call it again? They called it wave particle duality. We are both at the same time. We are not either or, and it's all connected. So, it's like we are here and we're not here, and it's just kind of mind-boggling, to be quite honest. It's just, anyway, it's a good book if you want to go and read it, by Jodi Picoult. It's like she is exploring the Book of Two Ways in Egypt, but also ends up by accident having this other life, and it's kind of two different timelines and two different stories, and they kind of come together at the end. But it's kind of wild. But I've long said that Aquarius is that kind of quantum wave energy because it's got the two waves. But then opposing it is Leo, and that is also kind of that particle energy, I think, the fire. Now then, the interesting thing about the Book of Two Ways in Egypt, because I know I'm babbling on and have gone off somewhere again, is that the two ways to the underworld, the two routes, the land and water, are separated by a lake of fire. Okay. And on this lunation, we have a square to Pallas Athena, the wise wise justice goddess in fire sign, visionary fire sign, Sagittarius. So this is a mutable T-square that is changing our thoughts about things. And the fact that Saturn and Mercury are behind the sun, both combust the sun, there's that exact astrological term, is really it is bringing in information from kind of out there in the world. All right. You know, we think we're very rational. Okay, Virgo is very earth particle material energy, very sensible, very straight thinking, very detailed. Pisces is kind of the opposite way. It's that right brain, left brain stuff going on as well. All of that stuff. And here we are coming together because Mercury is like going, oh, I'm not in control of this moon. Okay, but I may be the so-called ruler of Virgo for this full moon, but I'm not in control because I'm combust the sun, you know, I'm behind it. I'm out there in space somewhere on the other side of the sun, really thinking about the information coming in through knowing, through intuition and creativity and all things like that. And then Saturn, Saturn in Pisces has been helping us to let go of any limiting beliefs and really not just self-limiting beliefs, but any beliefs that everything is solid and structured. Okay, that's very Saturnian. Okay, that we know how things are. This is reality because Saturn is kind of get real kind of energy as well as Capricorn. So that's also, Saturn is also combust in Pisces. So we are being asked to let go of feeling that this is the way it always is, and then bringing that down to earth in a very practical and holistic way, which is very Virgo. And we're going through this visionary kind of problem solving. Pallas Athena is a problem solver. She's also that creative intelligence kind of energy. We are being asked to kind of pull all these pieces together in a very Alice in Wonderland way and make some sense to us, but in a new way and a more integrated and holistic way. So this really is about looking at the natural laws and truth, Sagittarius coming through, making adjustments about some outdated viewpoints, which is very Virgo, and opinions that are not based on universal, timeless principles, which is Pisces. So in a way, it's connecting the two ways, the path of water and the path of earth. And it's quite profound. And then we also have this wedge-shaped 2 series, feel what feeds our needs, you know, and what how do we fill other people's needs too. This is about unmet needs and met needs in a series in the sign of Virgo. Is have we kind of, you know, had a good look at the structures of our lives? And are we realizing that everything is impermanent in some ways and that change is inevitable, the mutable signs? And a 5 is also a number of change and the media. And are we prepared to make the changes to come into this more dualistic, holistic kind of energy? Are we prepared to know that we live in this real kind of wave particle duality at all times, and you know that's us, and we're connected to everything else. But it is kind of my mind boggling. There is another book I'm actually going to order, but Jody Pico recommended it. The only bad review I can see on it is that it's good for complete beginners. So I'm like, okay, that'll do for me. No, there's a couple of others, but basically it's saying it's good for complete beginners, and it's supposed to be a real cracking good read and very funny. It's called, and I'm going to put the link for this in the description as well for the book. And full disclosure, I am an Amazon affiliate, and if you buy the book from my Amazon link, feel free to go elsewhere if you want to. If you don't like Amazon, I will get like 5 cents or something for each copy sold. So, you know, you're not going to ruin my life if you go somewhere else. But if you do use my link, I'm an affiliate. I am obliged to say that. But it's called Quantum Physics Made Me Do It, a simple guide to the fundamental nature of everything by Jeremy Harris. And I was just drawn to talk about this because of the makeup of this. And everything once Pluto has moved into Aquarius as well, with that massive influx of energy that we had moving into Aquarius in pretty much all one go. You know, we had the sun move in, then Pluto, then Mercury, then Mars, then Venus, and it was just like, oh, so much. But now we're kind of at the point where we're taking everything that's come in this kind of chaos that we've been in since the sun moved into Aquarius, and then Pluto on January the 20th. And now we are talking about integrating things and pulling the pieces together in very mutable fashion, like a jigsaw puzzle in many ways, and doing some problem solving and some mind mapping, which is very Pallas Athena, and releasing and letting go of some very fixed old ideas of how things work. Because I can promise you, and every video I've talked in and other astrologers are saying this, things are changing at a massively rapid pace. Okay. So I think that's all I have to say about this full moon. It's you know, it has got this kind of icy feel to it a little bit. So it's the ice and snow moon, mostly because of the weather. But it's also because Saturn and Mercury are kind of in the far outer wastes from our perspective on the other side of the sun. They're in our kind of outer space more at the moment, and they can't be seen by us. And so that they are kind of frozen out, although they're actually burned out by the sun in some ways. But it's kind of got this cold, hard reality check. Get real. That's, you know, Ceres in Capricorn is very much about getting real. Virgo is about also getting real. Earth signs are very much kind of about the getting things manifest. How do we bring all of this down into Earth to what we can see, feel, touch, hear, taste, all the senses? It's quite powerful. Now, while I am just looking at the full moon and before I go to the symbols, I would like to remind you to subscribe to my channel, also my Substack if you like to read my posts too, and give me a thumbs up. And what else did I want to look at? Well, we're in an 8-year altogether, which is bringing some stability, thank heavens, but also moving us into infinity and beyond. I always think of the 8 as the infinity, but it's about power and abundance, and that's earth signs as well, by the way. You know, no, I'm not going to say that because I don't want to be held responsible, but I will just say I'm not a financial astrologer, but I just am not feeling this whole everything crashing kind of energy. So we're in an 8-year, but if we look at this, this is an 8, 14. This is a 7-day. Okay, 7-day in an 8-year. And we were in a 7-year last year. And a 7 is the most spiritual of numbers. It's got that very Piscean vibe to it as well. So you're really being asked to attune to kind of higher knowledge, to that connection with what we universal timeless principles, or and the collective unconsciousness and what's good for all of that, and bring it down into a sense of adjustment of what we need to do to be more whole so that we can chop wood, carry water, and be useful in this new world that's coming in. Okay. So, oh, by the way, I also, most of you know by now, maybe, maybe not. I am also a trained shamanic practitioner. I do course called core shamanism. It's kind of the same, pretty much the same practices that show up in every shamanic society. So I do journey work and dismemberment and so on and so forth. I do it a lot with my nest members. But I also see this two ways as being like the shamanic realms. Okay, we integrate the mind, the body, and the soul in shamanic realms, and we also journey into an alternate reality to ask questions and get answers and find out stuff and tune into this kind of second self. And I also think that of that as the two ways. This is kind of the particle, if you like, and the shamanic realms when we go off into a shamanic journey and do things is that wave kind of energy. We are moving into these multiverse alternate timelines kind of energy when we do shamanic work. So in many ways, I've also got a theory that we are returning to something that was lost, ancient times. And I know there's all these theories about Atlantis and things, and I'm you know, it's kind of not my thing that I've pursued. I've nothing against it, but I do think that maybe the ice ages or something, some big climate event at some point destroyed a lot of knowledge that humans kind of had developed over time, and we are kind of rediscovering and finding some of these ancient ways as we move into this new paradigm. Oh, so if you want a good book about journey work, actually I'll put that in the comments too. It's just a beginner's guide to journey work. Okay, so the Sabian symbol for the full moon, we always go up, if you remember. So this is a 5-degree Virgo full moon. And this, the Sabian symbol, is a merry-go-round, you know, where you sit on the horses and they go up and down and round and round. And James Burgess' interpretation of that is that this is about finding poise amidst emotional turbulence. It's about coming into the center. And he says, you know, it's about coming to terms with the life force. Life has its ups and downs, its cycles, its habits of repetition. And nevertheless, we can achieve something lasting. He says, like a merry-go-round, our emotional life is both cyclic and up and down, and the development of character requires us to find the poise, or at least the self-control, to deal with the changes. Implicit within our coping with life is that we can handle the life force. Okay. And this really reminds me of polyvagal theory again, with that, you know, the long nerve going right down from the brain stem to the root through the heart, bringing us mind, body, spirit into balance. Okay. More I could say about that, but I'm not going to. Already kind of going off on some very weird realms, but this is kind of how I work. I think I see astrology as quantum, so now, and so I have to explore all these things. But let's have a look at the Chandra symbols and the Omega symbol for this full moon. So again, we go up to Virgo 6. Talismans buried here and there along a road so that travelers will be protected. And he said, this is really about unconditional love, refuge, and shelter. And Virgo has that very protective energy, right? Okay, as well. And that kind of witch energy. I also always associate the sign of Virgo with the energy of the witch, and the M, which is the Marys, and so on, or which has been described as a witch in a bad way, but in the good witch kind of thing. In all of us. Anyway, let's have a look at what this says about these talismans buried here and there along a road. You are able to help others, that's very Virgo, move forward in their process and are able to clearly read where the stuck places are. the blockages and the fears that stop or retard the journey. You often work in an unseen manner and subtly and indirectly can instill in others confidence in themselves that they were lacking. This is not anything to do with being all showy about helping others. It's kind of just, showing them the way, leading the light. It's like very Hecate in many ways, and kind of being in the shadows and helping. This is what women have always done, but it's been denigrated for that. Or let's say the feminine. There've always been men that do this too. The Chandra symbol for this degree is a banyan tree that creates an entire forest. I love this. Knowledge proliferates, giving birth to more knowledge. This degree is aware of the connectedness of knowledge and the way it spawns more of itself infinitely. You must not be overwhelmed by this or try to assimilate all of it. To do so would be impossible. It's enough to know that it is there when you need it. And like the talismans and things of the Omega symbol that we looked about, they can protect and guide you as you make your way towards the palace of wisdom. So this it really is almost the energy of, well, the Virgo card in the tarot is the Hermit, and so I always think of the Virgo Pisces as this practical mystic. And Pisces also kind of is very much kind of about this cloud of unknowing and things. So really take some time on this full moon to kind of move into that hermitude mode for a little while, going within, maybe, I don't know, staying in those shadows, helping others to clear your own stuck places, blockages and fears that are stopping you on your journey, and that will inspire others. But there's a definite letting go in this full moon, as a full moon is always a release. And it's the ice cold moon, so you could also speak to literally freezing out some of these old kind of patterns, fears, blockages, limiting beliefs, stuck things, whatever you want to say. We are moving in such an interesting time, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about all the quantum energy and things. And I will post some links to a couple of the books that have been kind of blowing my mind, and the book I'm just about to buy as well, the one that I just talked about. I'll post a link to Jodie Pico's book as well. Of course, it's up to you if you want to buy any of them or none at all. But this is where my Gemini moon is going, with all of this kind of crazy change energy that we've got coming in. So I'll do it for you if you like. I'll spend all my time when I'm walking every day listening to all this stuff and then reading this other stuff and just like filling my mind with so much. I don't know how it's keeping up. But as the Chandra tree symbol says, knowledge proliferates, giving birth to more knowledge. All right. Okay, so I'll get this uploaded. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you on the next video. So, bye.